What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and we have got a whole lot to talk about as the MLB trade deadline has come and gone, and the Boston Red Sox have done squat. Plus, we'll finally get a chance to discuss Jaylen Brown's contract extension, as well as Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts being put on the trade block. We'll have some potential suitors for him and so much more. But first, I am pleased to welcome back a familiar face to the program. He is the man behind the incredibly popular Celtics fan page, Celtics Everything. You may know him better on this show, however, as Ryan Steiner. Ryan, glad to have you back with us today. Obviously, a whole lot to talk about. How are you doing, man?
Brian, I'm good. I'm glad to be back. I'm ready to get this going.
Yeah,
Excited to hit the topics, man.
absolutely. I know we brought you on the show for plenty of times before to discuss basketball news, mainly the Celtics, but I know you're a big baseball guy as well. We discussed before the show, actually. You just wrapped up a baseball season of your own. You were playing in the Saniba League. Tell me about how that was going.
Yeah, man, it was fun. We didn't win too many games. We had a lot of guys playing in other things, and
Sure.
a lot the size of the team went down over the season. But it was fun. I was able to get back out there. I hadn't played since freshman year of college,
Oh,
since
wow.
I tore the hamstring. So that was fun to get back out there. And yeah, we ended up losing the playoff games. But hey, what can you do? There's
Hey,
always next year.
hey, it is what it is. I know I actually
Always
got
next year.
absolutely. I know I even got to catch you at a game that you were playing my brother's team for. He played for Shrewsbury this year. You played for Oxford. I got to catch you at a game, which was pretty funny. I know that you decided to give it a whirl on the mound for a little bit.
Yes,
And
sir.
so
Yep.
how was that getting back out there?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's fun. It's fun. I mean, I'd never really done it before, but I worked on it a bit over the last few years or so, and I increased my velocity a bit, so I was pretty psyched to test it out. And unfortunately, everybody around here at least knows Shrewsbury's a powerhouse. So
Yeah, that
it
that
may not have gone how we wanted, but you know that's typical,
yeah.
typical against that team.
Yeah, I talked to you
So
after a game where Shrewsbury, it was just a tough game in general. It wasn't even you that had kind of a rougher day on the mound. I mean, unfortunately, man, like, I think you let up like 5 runs or so, but to do that against like D2 ball players that are just
I
coming off
think
having a crazy season, I think you should give yourself some credit for how you
Yeah,
handled
and that
yourself.
was the second go around against them. The first one I had only let up a run,
Oh, yeah.
but both games mercy. I mean, I by the time I was in,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, I think you got to give yourself some credit there. I mean, those guys, they had been just playing a full season. You haven't played in close to, what is it now, 3 years at that point.
Yeah, but yeah, over, a
Yeah,
little over two. Yep.
yeah. So I mean, like, listen, it's been. I'm glad that you got to get out there, have some success, but yeah, man, we're gonna dive into the Red Sox and what they really didn't do at this deadline, and that's kind of what a lot of people expected. Unfortunately, this has been a pretty steady trend as to what's gone on with this team since Chaim Bloom took office. And really, when they started competing in the full seasons, I'm not gonna really discuss the COVID season that much because there wasn't really anything that you could have done with that. But yeah, like in 2021, this team went out. And they kind of middled around. I know that they acquired Kyle Schwarber, but that was kind of a deal that happened because of his injury and certain things that happened in that instance. And then you go back to 2022, and it was pretty much an identical deadline to this one, where you really had no significant moves whatsoever, where there were some glaring needs with this team, and you just decided not to address it. Um, it really is frustrating too, because I think that you could have made some moves here, like not groundbreaking moves like some of that we'll talk about later in the show, but just some simple additions that I think could have, helped, get you to October. And then who knows, once you're there, you can make whatever kind of a run that you so please. But yeah, it is frustrating. Ryan, I'll let you kind of dive into it first.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, past years, they've always made like this minimal move and to either trade away prospects for somebody, and then they also seem to sell a body. So it was almost the same thing this year. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what we gave up in this trade so far, but I'm assuming it's going to be some lower end prospects. And then they sold Kike, who was going to be cut anyway.
Yeah.
So they seem to kind of even out each year with a move. They bring somebody in and ship a few out. I don't really know how to wrap my head around it. I mean, I think it's a it's a low risk move. He did have a good few seasons. He isn't batting great this year but I think there's some upside at least behind it, as a backup infielder. I also think this is it for Alberto Mondesi. Too, we were expecting him back, but he hasn't even touched the field, and I saw some reports that he isn't even close. So they expected him to be back at least pretty soon. So yeah, there might be a replacement there as well. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and Ryan, the move you're obviously talking about is the loan move that the Celtics did at this deadline. That was acquiring utility infielder Luis, I believe it's Urias, from the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for pitching prospect Bradley Blaylock.
Okay.
I looked this guy up. I think he's been a high A player at best. He had a solid ERA this year, an ERA of 1.5. So starting pitcher, young prospect, but I don't know too much about him at this point. I don't even know if he was a top 30 guy, so I can't really speak on him too much. But that's the one trade that Chaim Bloom swung at this deadline. When there were a lot of other pretty pressing needs that I think you could say, like, I mean, I don't really know why you needed to bring this guy in. You have a lot of other potential, like, good, utility guys. You have Yu Chang, who can play up there. You brought in Pablo Reyes, who I know has been disappointing, but you decided to bring him in. You have Christian Arroyo. The real issue has been at shortstop. I know second base has caused some concern as well. I know you've had to play Justin Turner there, but it's really been the issue at shortstop, which is kind of was needing some addressing. And I know that Trevor Story is going to be coming back from that, but yeah, like for me, it was really just pitching that I wanted to see happen here. And the other thing I wanted to see too was actually the dealing of Adam Duvall. I know that he's been kind of on a tear as of late, but the guy's on an expiring contract, and frankly, I just don't know how he fits into this team going forward. I know that you could DH him, you could use him in various different ways, but as of right now, the outfield's kind of not even a talented log jam, but it's just that you have like too many bodies out there for him to really fit in. And when you are putting him out there, you're putting him at center field, where it's just not his natural position.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's just a jumbled mess. I mean, I really thought Duvall was going to be shipped out. As much as I hate to see it, because I love Duvall. I think he's awesome.
100%. I like Duvall. I'm not saying that, he deserves to be sent out of town. It's quite the opposite. I think that the Red Sox could have sold high on a guy like this and potentially gotten back some good prospects, maybe in a haul. Like, say there's a, good team. Like, I'll just throw the Dodgers out there as an example. I know that they were linked to guys like James Paxton, but say the Dodgers needed a bat. They could get greedy or something towards the end of the deadline, say, all right, we really need this guy. We'll send you a higher prospect than probably what he's worth. So I wish that could have been explored more, but Chaim Bloom did talk to the media after this. He said that basically the price was too high to pay for any additions coming in. And that's just a sorry excuse, in my opinion. You can't have that. You're the manager of the Boston Red Sox, and it's been so frustrating to see this. This team is just completely hamstrung right now. You're running it like it's the Kansas City Royals, and you won't even go over the luxury tax to help a team out that's been relatively surprising this year. I wrote this team off, Ryan, at the beginning of the year. I said that there was no way they were going to be able to compete with the loss of Xander Bogaerts and with everything that had gone their way. Nathan Eovaldi even leaving that rotation as well. Just looking at what he's done in Texas, he was fantastic up until his injury. And yeah, it's just like, I really thought that they were going to be, a bottom tier, like completely out of the running kind of team, but they fought their way in it. They're only a couple games out, and your general manager gives up on you at this deadline. It's really, for a Red Sox team, knowing their history, it's concerning to see.
Yeah, no, it's concerning, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of positivity there at the end of the day, though, because as you say, the expectations were low coming into the season, and at this point, do you really is this team going to win a World Series? Probably not with this talent level. But do you make that leap and give up prospects for a year like this? Do you? Because you see a bunch of farm hits, and you're seeing guys come from overseas like Yoshida. He came in and he's having a phenomenal season. I mean, do you break up your farm system for stars? I would like to think they were in on one of these big pitchers that were going in the last few days.
I don't
They
think they
had to
were.
have been.
I don't think they were.
I would hope they would at least have been a team in the conversation, and then ended up not obviously getting them. But I don't know. I don't really know where the general manager goes from here. I mean, I don't know what other direction he was thinking. You know, just staying put. The only thing I can think is that they thought that us getting Sale back, Story back, all of our guys back would be enough. But
Yeah, but that's the ridiculous thing. Like that's a cop out move if you're the general manager of a team like the Red Sox with the resources that you have. Guess what? Like I know Chaim Bloom was brought in to rebuild the farm system. Guess what? He rebuilt it. It's pretty good. I mean, we got some solid prospects now. You got Marcelo Meyer, who I'm not saying to trade unless, there was a generational all-world talent that you could lock up for multiple years. And even then, he's one of those players that is going to be the foundation of your team moving forward. I'm not saying to move on from him. And even a guy like Cedar Rafaela, who I've gotten to see in Worcester, he's been electric this year. So I'm not saying to look to get rid of guys like that either. But Nick York, who's in Portland right now, Blaze Jordan, who I've been listening to some sports talk radio. They're kind of saying that based upon Tristan Casas's recent kind of emergence as a top tier first baseman in these past couple of weeks, it's going to be kind of a logjam over there at first base, making it tougher for Blaze to really have a spot in Boston. He's not really going to be a designated hitter. We have a lot of those already. So I don't really know where we're going to go with it from here. Like there are pieces and moves that you could have made to improve this team without depleting the farm system. I'm not saying you need to go full Dave Dombrowski and drain the farm system of everything that it has and, make those moves. But as we can see with some of the moves Dombrowski made, not all those guys hit. Like Yohan Moncada, who we traded for Chris Sale, was the number one prospect in all of baseball, the number one prospect. And he's had a fine career to this point. He's been a solid player for the White Sox, has had his moments, but really didn't live up to the potential I think a lot of people thought he would. And then another move I know Dombrowski made was getting Craig Kimbrell from the San Diego Padres, and we decided that we were going to give up Manuel Margot in that trade, who, we thought had a lot of promise. I got to see him play down in Portland. He had some pop in that bat, but he's never really materialized either. So, I mean, you need to understand that not all these guys are going to be future stars. Some of these guys are going to get to the big leagues and suck. That's just how it happens. Like, not everyone is a major league player. Like that's the bad news of it. Like not every guy can really cut it at that major league level. So I don't know.
Right. And I agree with you completely. And it's why I'm so excited to see how it does play out in the end. It's disappointing. It is. But now that we have stood put, we can sit here and say, well, look, we do have a bunch of guys coming up. Maybe, this is a plan of dynasty, I think in their eyes. And I don't know what you give up for that now, but I think you look at the general manager's trades and you see a bunch of utility moves over the past few years, whether it's been Schwarber. Schwarber was okay, like we were saying. So
Schwarber was great. I will argue that Schwarber was a great move for us.
Right.
But the only reason we got him, I think it was for our 19th ranked prospect, I believe. He was a pitcher. We sent him to the Nationals and we were able to get him. We only had to give that up because Schwarber was hurt at the time and people didn't know what he was going to be coming off that injury. The guy we sent to the Nationals blew his arm out and apparently hasn't been heard from again. So It's like, go on.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, and whether it was Ben Kike now, Adam Duvall, Justin Turner, bringing in all these guys, we've lost pieces. But if you look at Bogart's season versus Yoshida's season, and I've been talking about this with my friend, Yoshida's been better for us than Xander's been for the Padres.
Sure.
In terms of what we've needed. So it's weird. He's great at making these moves that kind of keep us afloat, but don't push us over the edge. So I would love to see some homegrown talent so that he is force fed some talent and then make his own moves around them like he has been and fill in with those utility players. That's where that's where the Red Sox have thrived in the past, where you guys making playoff runs like the 2018 team with Steve Pearce and Mitch Moreland. Guys like that, where we find those guys when we already have that homegrown talent around them. I think it could be something special in years to come.
Yeah, but Ryan, I'll say this, and I understand that you are, you're supportive of this team as well.
Absolutely,
and you're sympathetic to this cause. I'd argue that the homegrown talent is finally starting to show itself. I mean, Tristan Casas is breaking through right now. We've seen him on an absolute tear as of late. I know that maybe he's kind of cooled off in some spots, but Sending that ball, what was it, 430 opposite field in San
Oh,
Francisco is ridiculous. Like, he's
yeah.
playing out of his mind right now. And even Jarren Duran, I know his defense still needs some work, but his bat is also coming together too. So like, there are pieces of this younger core which are finally starting to, step up to the occasion. But I just am wondering, like, how long are Red Sox fans supposed to wait? We're in year 4 of the Chaim Bloom regime. This shouldn't be the case at this point. Like, you should at least, I think, see some sort of returns on what you're getting now. I know that you can't ask for, everything, but I mean, you went out in 2019, fell into a middling thing. In 2020, you decided to basically blow it all up, send Mookie Betts out the door, blah, blah, blah. In 2021, I'm just going to say it was kind of a fluke based on what happened. Like, getting the ALCS just should not have happened for that team. And then 2022, that's pretty much where you kind of were. And then this is just a follow up on that. I mean, I really don't know what to do with it. Like, I mean, the prospects and the talent are finally starting to emerge. And another name too, I just completely had forgotten, Brian Bayo. He's pitching his ass off too.
He is too. Yes, he has been amazing. Yes, yeah.
So, like, exactly right. The pieces are there. So how much longer are fans supposed to wait, Ryan?
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's got to be within. You would think a few close. I think it's close. I think what do? You let go of Sales soon, and you move on from all those guys, and you just, I don't know. You got Story on a big contract too. Like, you have some long term. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, I know. And I know the idea is like, all right, we're going to build, and a lot of people are targeting next year, 2024 or 2025 as the date that the Red Sox will finally like really jump off and actually like be ready to compete, to battle for a World Series. And I'm like, great. If that's when all the young pieces are finally going to be on the major league roster and are clicking, that's great. But I'm also still concerned if Chaim Bloom's still the GM at that point, and there is a really good Red Sox team that is like in first place in the AL East and is like, running away with that division and making a bid for October. Is he going to have it in him to go out there and make a move to bring in a quality piece to add to that team? Right. Or are they just going to say, well, we're good with the guys we've had now, we're going to stick with it?
Right.
And from what I've seen so far on multiple occasions in 2021, you had a damn good team up until the deadline. Like, it's not even like you caught fire after the fact and got in. I know you had to have that wild card run and whatever, but you were doing fine up until that deadline too. Then you were able to get in and do this stuff. And it's not that you need to be a bona fide World Series contender every year, but who knows? Like, you need to see these things play out. And I think that, if the 2019 Nationals didn't go out and make moves, if the Atlanta Braves didn't go out and make moves when they had struggled early on in the year, who knows what they would have turned into. But they actually went out there, they put their foot down, and they made some significant moves that helped their team. The Red Sox won't do that right now.
Right. I agree. Yeah, it's definitely is a question in my mind. I'm trying to remain positive but it has to be. You have to think about it.
I know you're trying. I can't. But
I know.
okay.
I know. You're fed up. You're fed up. You want blood for this team. But you know what? I don't blame you. We're both passionate about it.
Yeah, and I want blood for them because I care about them. If I didn't care about this team, I wouldn't be talking about them like this. I'd be like, what? I'd be like, what? The Red Sox, they're going to do whatever the hell they want. I don't really care. I don't care. Yeah. And I'd be like, cool, they're going to make a run. Yeah, whatever. If they fall short of the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Baseball is my number one sport, Ryan. Like, it is my first love, like what I've always cared about. I know I have feelings towards football and all these things too, but baseball is really what I have always cared about. And the Red Sox have always had that connection for me. And to see them just get turned into this middle market, Tampa Bay Ray, Kansas City Royal style team, where I understand that the philosophy has changed. It's not just about buying all this talent anymore, which we'll talk about with the Mets, but it's like, you at least, when you have the resources of the Red Sox, you can do both. You are allowed to spend and go over the luxury tax, and it's not going to kill you. But yeah, I don't know. That's my take with that. I am frustrated with this team. Ryan, do you have any final thoughts on the Red Sox before we switch things over?
No, I think we covered it all. Yeah, they have no direction. That's all.
So that's kind of what our thoughts are on the Red Sox. I had just mentioned the New York Mets. And the way that they had tried to build their team, which was just by buy, and bringing in all these big guys and on long-term contracts and frankly, the mistake was doing it with older guys. 2 years ago, they brought in Max Scherzer, and then this past offseason, they brought in Justin Verlander from the Houston Astros. Verlander, as of late, had actually been doing pretty well for the Mets. I think he had a 1.49 ERA over his last 7 starts. So, I mean, he's really piecing it together. Maybe he's finally starting to kind of look like the Cy Young version of himself that we saw last year. So I'm not ready to discredit him just yet, but wow, the Mets just completely imploded this year. All kind of started in that World Baseball Classic where Edwin Diaz blew out his knee on that celebration, and it's just been all downhill since then. And they have gone into a complete fire sale mode. They sent Max Scherzer to the Texas Rangers, and then they also sent Justin Verlander back to the Houston Astros for surprisingly a very good haul on their part. I will give them credit. They got the Astros number 1 and number 4 prospects for a 40-year-old pitcher on a $40 million contract. So I will give the Mets credit on that if they got that all off their books for a handful of prospects.
Absolutely. But as we just talked about with the Red Sox, you never know what those prospects will do. And I think the Astros are, again, another team that was one pitcher away.
Mm-hmm.
They're always one pitcher away.
Sure, yeah.
From a World Series again. And now you bring in Verlander. He's hot. It's not a bad move for the Astros. I mean, you know what we all know what they do. They're going to be up there and competitive every year. So they always obviously value those prospects a little less. Now, as for the Mets, I'm really upset and disappointed for the Mets and their fans, just because, like, they're always outshined by the Yankees, just being in that area, and it just, I really thought when they got these two guys, especially this year when they got Verlander, it was awesome. I was really hopeful for them, and it just hasn't panned out, and it sucks to see them go back to kind of square one. But
I'll give them credit. They did, for the production that you got out of this pitcher, like, you did make the right move for longevity of getting that guy. And he was healthy going into the deadline over a guy like Jacob deGrom, who, did go to Texas, got a bunch of money, and is now just sitting on the bench. Like, you did in effect for this season, get the better guy. So I won't discredit the Mets for maybe seeing that and going out and getting that guy. But to put so much money into just trying to get these players, it's crazy to just see how the mighty have fallen, I guess you could say. Like, you really thought that this team could have had the potential to go out there and vie for, playoffs, maybe a World Series if everything went right. And, it just was the complete opposite. Everything imploded and they just could not capitalize.
Right. Absolutely. And speaking of it, I was thinking about this team earlier when we were talking with the Red Sox, actually. But they, similar to the Mets, the Padres, another team that just bought.
Mm-hmm.
I can't figure it out. I can't figure out why they're not good.
Yeah,
I cannot do it.
This has been an issue for AJ Preller too, because he's had a couple of these big spending sprees. From when he even first got to San Diego, he went out, and I remember got Matt Kemp, got Craig Kimbrell, Will Myers was part of the deal, Justin Upton he brought in, and all these big players. And I remember we thought, me and my buddy, like, we were like in 8th grade or something when he first took office, and we were like, oh, the Padres are going to win the World Series. And at that point, like, when it actually came down to it, we realized, oh, that's not actually how it works. I understand that there is a middle ground of building it up from building up a farm system, doing it money ball style, not spending a lot of money, and then going old school and just shelling out the big bucks. There is a middle ground that I think you do have to work. And, it's crazy just seeing the complete polar opposites of the Padres, Mets, and then the Red Sox.
I mean, I can keep going with the Padres through Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado. Look at this.
Machado, you can actually give credit for. He's been actually a very solid player.
He's been good, but they still spent a lot of money on him.
Sure.
And it still hasn't really done anything for them in terms of. But now, I mean, they went and they've had Yu Darvish. They get big names. They just Juan Soto.
They signed Yu Darvish to like a 6-year contract or something ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's been fine too. Well, I'm not saying these guys have all been like atrocious for them, but they're just not producing wins, and it's just, I can't even believe, like, the buying market for the Padres and that owner has to be just, like, it has to be done soon. Somebody's got to do something about it, because they're just going to keep spending.
I mean, I had thought that I had been hearing, in my work today, that apparently they were talking about maybe sending out Juan Soto to try to clear some cap space, and as you know, some of my coworkers at work said get the all great one in reference to Shohei Ohtani this offseason.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it is it's crazy to see how it all kind of panned out.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how it goes. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this kind of an interesting note about the Max Scherzer deal specifically was that the Rangers sent back shortstop prospect Luis Angel Acuna, who is actually the brother of Ronald Acuna. So who knows? Like, I mean, if it runs in the family, then maybe the Mets did get a very good piece for Scherzer there. I mean, if this kid can live up to his brother's name, I mean, who knows what the
He
Mets
plays
could have.
shortstop, and he plays
Mhm.
shorts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's an interesting move to see from the Mets there. But yeah, no, like obviously the first pitcher of those two to go was Max Scherzer going to the Texas Rangers. And man, you know, I know that Houston's in a battle with them, you know, now getting Verlander to boost their pennant race. But yeah, Ryan, do you think that Texas is now the runaway favorite to come out of the American League with all the moves that they've made, or do you think that they're kind of a paper tiger?
I think at this point I feel like they're more on the edge of a runaway. I mean, they've made a
Really?
lot of moves. I mean, yeah, I think they're really good. I think they're really good. I think they're gonna put it together at the right time. But that doesn't mean, I mean, it's baseball. We know how baseball goes. Anybody can really beat anybody if you're hot at the right time. And so I won't say that they're a lock, but they are really good and they have made the moves. You know, and I'm really excited to see how it folds out because I think you have a lot of teams that are either right in the wild card race or in wild card spots that could give them a run as well. You know, in lower rounds too. So I mean, it's not going to be a tough. I mean, it's not going to be a easy road for them to get there. You know, so let's see how it pays off. I guess you spent big. So yeah, it all starts I guess tomorrow or tonight whenever these trade moves go through.
Yeah, I mean, you are right with that. So I mean, I look at this team now and you know, like I'm looking back over those all-stars of Josh Heim, or Jonah Heim, Josh Jung, Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon, Nate Evaldi. And like, yeah, like they are, you know, for what they did, I mean, they burst onto the seams this year with just how quickly everything kind of came together for them. So I will give them credit with that. But yeah, like I don't know, something about them just seems off to me. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it may be just the inexperience, everything like that. I know that Corey Seager is a World Series champion. I'm not trying to take that away from him, or even
Yeah,
Marcus Simeon with the success that he's had, you know, in his stints before. But I just don't know if it's ready to come together yet. It's almost like it, in a sense, reminds me of the Padres a little bit, like with what they had last year, where you know you all thought the pieces were together, and well, Tatis at that point I think was already suspended, or yeah, I think he had already been suspended by that point. But you had Soto, you had all those pieces in play, and you really thought, oh, this is the type of team that could make a run, and they get knocked out early.
right.
I think this is a type of team like that could get upset really early if not everything is kind of set. Like they're maybe a good, you know, other Boston sports analogy for it could be like the Bruins of this year. You know, you
Sure.
look at them this year, incredible regular season. Everyone had sky high expectations for them. They were like, well, yeah, they're just dominating this year. They're going to run away with the Stanley Cup playoffs too. And then you get into a playoff matchup where, you know, some guys aren't afraid of you. They're going to go at you, you know, for, you know, 7 games in a row and they knock your teeth in. I think it's possible that this team could, in theory, could in theory get knocked out. If Nate Evaldi, I don't know how serious his injury is, but I had heard about it. If he's out for a significant period of time, there's, you know, no questions that he can come back and be his first half self. And then I don't know how Max Scherzer is going to adjust to being back in this pennant race again. I know he's always been Mad Max. He was dominant during that 2019 run for the Nationals, but there's always some questions there too. So I don't know. That team does seem kind of like a paper tiger. I don't know if they are all the way there, but you know, we will have to see how that all does pay out. But Ryan, that's what we have in baseball news for the show. I do want to finally jump over to some NBA news, talk about some stuff that is in your domain, things that you cover on your Celtics Everything page. And I'm surprised that I haven't gotten to this yet, but with not doing my show last week due to work and everything else, it kind of got carried away. But I finally am able to talk about Jaylen Brown's 5-year extension with the Boston Celtics. $304 million to play for that team. And the final year of the deal, he's going to be making close to $70 million in 1 year alone. Ryan, just break down your thoughts when you first heard the terms of that deal getting announced.
Yeah, so I wasn't shocked. I mean, I didn't know what we were necessarily waiting for. I mean, we figured it out. I'm sure they were fighting that. He got a trade kicker in that, I believe. Right? Is it no? He got the no trade clause in that.
Yeah, I do believe it does come with a trade kicker.
Yeah, so I mean, that's probably what they were really fighting over. But he was going to get that money, whether it was going to be there or a max that was a little bit less somewhere else. He was going to get that money.
Sure.
So you know, I don't know. Obviously, one, they didn't find a trade suitor. Two, you just can't lose that piece.
No.
No matter how many flaws he might have in the playoffs with his left hand or whatnot, you can't lose 27 points a game for nothing.
No.
So
you at least do need. I will say that you do need to make a move, and you do need to get that solid. But go ahead.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. However, you know, Jaylen. Well, once we see these contracts roll out in the next few years, that Jaylen contract, just like the first one, seems big, and it is big, but it could be a little bit more worth it than I think we're thinking now. I mean, the market's just kind of rising. I think I saw a post that had kind of the next line of superstars that were going to be ready at maxes, and like Nikola Jokic's is like 405 million over 5, and like yeah. That's what I mean. And then like Tatum was 334 over something. I forget, probably over 5. So he's going to get more than Jaylen Brown, and it's all going to work out because the market's just going to keep going. People are just going to keep spending more money.
I mean, yeah, it's simple. It's simple economics. It's just
right,
going to be supply
absolutely.
and demand.
So I mean, at this point in the NBA, Jaylen Brown is at that level where he was eligible for contracts like this, and he's going to get it. He produces that regardless of how good he is in the playoffs or not. He's going to reproduce that. That type of interest and that type of contract. So I'm not shocked. However, it is a lot of money. It is a ton of money, especially when there are, the play options where you trade a little bit less of that scoring for a piece that might do a few things, might score a little bit and pass a little bit, or play some better defense or whatever they may do. May we see that move in the future if he has an off season. Stars can have off seasons at any time. And that's what could scare me about Jaylen Brown, because he's not like the star. We haven't seen him without Tatum, right? So on his own, we don't know how he could be somewhere else. So if he has an off season, I can see him being shipped to a team where he just like doesn't want to be behind Tatum anymore. If he let's say he drops down and has a season at like 22 points a game, and it's just a horrendous season and they don't win anything, he might want out. So I mean, if he didn't want out now, if he has a bad season, he could want out then, and he got it. He got all the money he asked for. So he stayed for that one extra year, got his extra money, and then he may want out if he has a bad season. We don't know, but that's kind of how I've been thinking about it, really.
Yeah, and Ryan, I'll agree with you on that. I mean, I didn't want them to give up him for nothing. If there was not a trade candidate that you could have got some significant compensation for, I wasn't just going to say, well, let him walk to free agency and, do what you can this year. That's not a smart business move. You at least needed to get him signed to a deal. And if you find a trade partner and say, 2-3 years from now, you can make that deal and you can, get something out of it. But it is just still mind blowing with the numbers that he's getting. And just to think about it, if they're going to be investing this into him, you obviously know that they are going to be investing more into Jason Tatum, and that they are willing to do so, because if they didn't think that they could get Jason Tatum with an increased contract that's going to be probably significantly higher than this one, then they wouldn't have extended Brown in the first place. That means that they are willing to spend maybe close to 350 million, maybe even more on Jason Tatum. And you're going to be pouring over $500 million into 2 players alone. And I just have to wonder, do you think that that's the best way to be spending your resources with this team? Like, do you think that, you could have done maybe something similar to, I don't know, like I know that Denver has Murray and Jokic, but I'd say that one is significantly higher rated than the other. Do you think that you could have done something similar to that? Or do you think that this is just the trend that we're going to see with the NBA now, and it's just going to be these incredibly high paid, duos?
I feel like a lot of those other teams are just all some of these teams are teams that just kind of run through stars.
Mm.
And I think in Boston we really cherish, like, obviously we just traded him away, but we cherish guys like Marcus Smart, we cherish guys that stick around and are for this city. I feel it shows at least that we have some loyalty to them,
Mhm.
and that we believe in them. And I think, you know, whether Jaylen Brown would want to get traded or not in the future, he has a no trade clause, so it seems like he may want to be here as well. So like we said, we don't know that. I just think I think spending all those money on those guys, it always has its questions, but it gives me security knowing that we have something at least solid to build around. And I don't like, not knowing when, like, Kyrie Irving, we never knew what was going to happen with him.
Mhm.
All these stars that came in, and like same with Gordon Hayward, really, dude, at the end, Gordon Hayward was balling out for us, and then all of a sudden gone, just like that, to Charlotte. We didn't really even see it coming, and I like the security factor. However, do I wish I had money to spend in other places? Of course. But what I do think is that you also have money tied up into White, Brogdon, and
Or
Porzingis.
Singis. Yeah.
So
But now the question is just going to be like, can you win with those limited resources? I know that, it's not like I'm saying like you need guys like down the bench to like your 10th guy and you need to have like this crazy like deep like rotation. But do you think you have even enough to fill out those like little places here and there? Like you can sign probably the other half of the roster to vet mins. I'm not saying like you need to go out and like each guy needs to be carefully tailored, but do you think you have a strong enough 8, maybe 9 guys?
yeah, I mean, so let's list them out. I guess, I mean, we don't really know what's going on with Pritchard, so I guess we'll leave him off. I don't know, but
Yeah.
we got what? We got White, Brogdon,
Well, is
Tatum,
Brogdon?
Brown.
Well, Ryan, you know it better than I do. Is Brogdon even going to be here next year?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think
like,
that was
like,
repairable. I think that was repairable. I
do
mean,
you? Because
oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought that there was going to be. I thought it was going to be similar to like a Ray Allen situation to where he was never going to be able to like repair that situation, and you know, come free agency, he decides to say, all right, I'm going to take less money, go to the Heat.
You cannot. So listen. I think this might blow your mind, actually.
Okay.
From Malcolm Brogdon's perspective, right, dude? They just traded their heart and soul for the last decade and kept you around.
Yes,
That's a ballsy move.
But what I'll say though is that they did that because the other team thought your ass was too hurt. If the Clippers didn't have an issue with your physical and they didn't think you were all banged up, your ass was going out the door to Los Angeles.
Right. I do understand that. But I mean, what's bad about being in Los Angeles? Like,
Oh no,
either way for him. That's what
nothing
I mean.
bad,
Either
nothing
way for
bad
him.
about it. But he was this close. But if they didn't think that his elbow was shot, he was going to be off this team. Like they were ready to send him out the
Right.
door. If the Clippers had said, yeah, we'll do it, he's not on this team anymore. That's an actual fact.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely agree. But it goes the same way with the Smart trade as well, where it's just like any one of them were going to be traded. Any one of those three point guards were going to be traded, or those wings, and we didn't think it was going to be White over Brogdon. So we knew it was going to be probably Brogdon. I think Brogdon also knew that. I think there was definitely some going into the offseason that, hey, like, we believe in you. We want you around here. We're going to shop your name around. We're shopping everybody's name around. I feel like that is something that could have went down. I mean, you got to realize that their owners will have these tough conversations with these guys, and I think Brogdon was forced to come to an understanding that he was going to be shopped around, and there was a chance that he wasn't going to be here next year. So I think at that point he accepts that, and then you realize that, like, they believe that you can be still an essential part on a championship team to them, and you just traded Marcus Smart. Like I said, heart and soul. You got to think there is some respect there, at least, like from both sides. So I do think I don't think it was unrepairable. I do think there was a good chance that it could have exactly went the opposite way, and he would have just won it out, like, and left like Ray Allen did. But I think Brogdon's also just a quiet, easygoing guy, and I feel like he's he seems to be okay with it. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we would have heard something by now.
Yeah.
It's been over a month.
Now, Ryan, I under the impression that I know you seem to be very strong-willed on the opinion that Brogdon will return. If he is on the team to start the year, what do you really expect from him at this point? I mean, that was a pretty nasty elbow injury with ligament damage and things like that going on. We saw him in that game 7 against Miami, and he was airballing shots by like 4 feet. Like
Yeah.
it was bad. Like he just completely seemed like he had a dead arm. And in your opinion, do you think that he is like, do you think that's an injury that you can come back from? Like, I just don't know. Like with ligament damage like that, I mean, I typically hear about that with pitchers. So I don't know how that is with like a basketball player, but I know that, Brogdon shooting isn't his end all be all. He's able to do other things with the ball, but if he can't get up a 3-pointer anymore, if he can't even just pull up for a jumper, I mean, he's kind of just a body out there.
Right. Right. And I will say that so to that point, I mean, I feel like it's like I don't know how to like really compare it to another injury, but like I guess you see like Steph Curry and rolling his ankles. I'm sure there's like repeated ligament damage. I'm not totally sure on how many times Brogdon has had this issue with his arm, or if this was like a one-time thing though. I feel like if it's only ligament damage, he did get surgery on it. You do give him that shot. And maybe that's it for him as well in terms of wanting to come back as well. He's already got a solidified role. He doesn't know what he could be on the Clippers coming off an injury as well. But I think you got to give him a shot, and I think you can expect somewhere close to like probably like 13, 14 points a game. He come off the bench. I feel like I feel like you just got to kind of see how it is, and if you wait too long, then you're not going to get anything for him. But if you can kind of tell right away and you ship him out before it's too noticeable, you get a piece back. It is definitely a question mark, and yeah, I mean, I guess I really haven't worried too much about his wrist. I do.
Well, I think
I
it's
just
an
I guess
elbow. It's an elbow,
the
correct? I
elbow.
thought.
It's the
Yeah.
elbow to the wrist or something. Yeah, I knew it was the
No,
arm. I saw him
it's
airballing.
like a forearm. Yeah. It's
Okay, yeah,
something.
yeah. I knew it was like somewhere in between, but I feel like I mean I've gone. I mean we've all played sports through injury before. We all know when we're not
Sure.
100%. I mean
And
I feel like he didn't. I mean obviously he wanted to play in those series. He did the best he could with what he had was dealing with. And obviously he was smart enough for at least the team to pull himself out of those games. So,
yeah,
um,
I mean,
I feel
yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Like, I'm not saying that like I like you mentioned Steph Curry with his ankle, and I'm not saying that a basketball player doesn't need like ankles. Obviously, you need to be able to drive and you need to be able to just even get off the ground for a jump shot. But I'd say if your elbow or just arm has damage and you're not able to actually like force the actual shot off of your wrist and actually like push the ball off, I'd say that's a more damaging thing than just an ankle injury, because I think you could learn to kind of come off and like jump a different way or do something, or just learn to balance yourself, and I think you could eventually get that back even if you're not as explosive of a player. But if you actually have damage in the elbow and can't get the shot up, I don't know what that really looks like.
right. So that's what I was trying to say with the comparison. More of it was like the tendon damage, where like Curry has problems with it.
Yeah.
Curry, you see repeatedly him rolling his ankle and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Talking about those type of injuries, I didn't know if Brogdon had problems with that before.
Yeah.
Now if it's something where Brogdon, right, he comes back, he's doing okay, and then all of a sudden sprained elbow, sprained wrist, whatever it may be at that point, and he has soreness or something like that. That's when you start to get concerned. I feel like. I feel like you don't get concerned on this first go around. I like I said, I personally just thought he was just injured playing in the playoffs, and I still think he's going to be the same Malcom Brogdon he was. He's had injuries before. He's been injured in Indiana, and he's come back, and he's kind of been a pretty effective player almost every time. So
Yeah. I
I
mean,
do have some confidence there.
the other concerning thing that I was going to point to was that the Clippers, guys, like even after all like the injuries that or after all the time that had passed between that game 7 and when the potential trade had gone down, like still was enough to flag for hey, this guy won't be ready to maybe start for a good portion of the season. I was going to mention that, but I also do know that that those same Clippers trainers had also made remarks about Michael Porter Jr. saying that like he was going to have some risks. And I know that he's had injuries throughout the league as well. I know that he's had that terrible back injury before he even got to the league. So I don't know. It's tough to really determine with those guys, but I did want to mention that as well. But Ryan, before we do go, there is one other topic I want to discuss, and that is Jonathan Taylor in the NFL. For many people, the best running back on your fantasy team, that dynamic guy, is requesting a trade from the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts went out there, drafted Anthony Richardson, looking to be starting over on that offense, and it does not appear that Jonathan Taylor wants to stick around for a rebuild. So there are a couple teams that are on his potential destinations. I found these from some Colts bloggers. Apparently, every team in the AFC East besides the Patriots is in on him. So the Dolphins are I think like the number one team that he could go to. The Bills are on there, and so are the Jets. Ryan, what do you think about this? I mean, Jonathan Taylor is the best running back, for many years across the NFL. I know that he's had injuries of his own, but top tier name. Do you think that it is smart for these teams to shell out big potential draft capital or even other players to get him?
Yeah, I definitely think he's worth it. I completely believe he's worth it. I've been pretty high on Jonathan Taylor right out of college.
Sure.
I was the type in my fantasy draft. I was drafting him a lot earlier than most people were in his first year, and I'm a guy who sat on him in years that he had a down year last year as well. But I feel like the Colts have misused him from the start. And for this reason, I've ended up watching a lot of Colts games. There was years where like Jordan Wilkins, like running backs that like aren't even in the league anymore. I think it was Marlon Mack who was good. He was good. But like Naheem Hines, like all these carries were getting taken away from him, even in the beginning. They finally gave it to him. He broke through and ran away with him. And he's just been treated like dirt. Right then and there, he deserved that contract. He was putting up numbers that were reminiscent of like I don't want to make too much of a comparison, but it was like Derrick Henry, like almost like the uprising of Derrick Henry. Like he couldn't be stopped. You couldn't tackle him. It was really like like this guy's gonna be a star forever. I think a team's gonna be willing to give up those assets, and I think he will be worth it for them. I saw something earlier today about the Chiefs. They were saying
that'd be crazy.
They were saying they want him to be the Thunder to Pacheco's Lightning, which was a little tacky, but
that's kind of corny. That is kind of corny. But I was more thinking about the matchup, not the actual like terminology there. That's actually that's pretty cringy. But listen, I understand that he has incredible talent right now, and he is one of the best backs in the league, and he might be one of those guys you make an exception for. But the trend we're seeing right now, Ryan, is that running backs are getting more and more undervalued as it's going along. Mm-hmm. It almost appears that the current position as we see it could be relatively extinct in the next couple of years with the way things are going. I mean, we're seeing the whole debacle that went down with Saquon Barkley, and just everything with those guys too. Dalvin Cook still being a free agent, Ezekiel Elliott not being able to find a home. I know that the Patriots are close to maybe landing him, but the trend right now is, not to really go out and, change your organization too much to, go get these running backs. Like, I don't know how much a team is really going to be willing to go out there and spend. I don't know is Jonathan Taylor worth, a first round pick? Is he going to be worth like multiple seconds or something like that? I don't know what his real value is going to be anymore, because the, definition of what running back value should be has just changed so much.
Yeah, I think you see a team where there's already probably I'm not even sure. I haven't even dived way into all possible trades yet. But I have a feeling you're gonna get something back for him more than picks. I feel like a pick will be thrown in, but I feel like you might actually get a player back.
You might get a player, but I don't know of what significance, because in the NFL, it's not really the way trades go. In the NBA, MLB, even the NHL, like you do get usually some sort of a player in return for what you're sending out the door. NFL, it is really more just you're giving up a guy for picks. And then if it's like just to make contracts match or something like that, you'll sometimes throw in a player. But it never really is like one of these like 1-for-1 deals where it's like, hey man, I'll give you this guy if you give us this. Like it's never. Yeah. It is. No. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the one league where you really don't see, really player for player compensation. It really is draft capital, because that's what all the teams usually look forward to. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that, and I do think that's possible. And if you do go back and look at all these Super Bowl teams, a lot of them, there really isn't a superstar running back on the roster.
No, look at it. Like who was the big time running back like for the past like 5 Super Bowls? I mean, Sony Michel, who just retired, scored the Patriots winning touchdown in Super Bowl 53. Like what was the Chiefs running back? Pacheco. Like these guys are solid backs for the time for the run that they have, but it's not like these guys are going to be like all world like, groundbreaking names. Maybe we'll see Pacheco burst on the scene this year and really put it, make a name for himself, but I don't know.
Yeah, so Brian, I think you see a lot of guys out there that can't find a home. It's tough to see what he's going to do. What Jonathan Taylor's going to do about it too. I've been seeing a lot of videos of him. Like he hasn't even lost the Colts locker room. Does he end up playing? Does he have to force himself out on the field to at least provide him the trade value to get out of that situation? What do you do about that? I don't know, but it's same thing with like you have Leonard Fournette, you have all these guys that just can't find a home, and I don't seem to know why. Teams are just cutting money. I mean, you do see that all these running backs that you don't need over this time to win a Super Bowl, but where else are you really? What are the other positions that are essential then to win the Super Bowl? If running back isn't,
yeah,
then where else are you going to be spending this money? I just don't know how a guy who leads the team and the league in yards and scores is just not going to play. That's just crazy to me.
I mean, Ryan, in my opinion, does he need to play? Yes, he does need to play because as we've seen with running backs, their shelf life is very limited. And I mean, the great example of a guy sitting out and it hurting him. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, I know he eventually got that contract from the Jets, but missed a year of his prime just to sit out over a contract dispute. And, now is, he, had that stint with the Jets, kind of flamed out there and then was kind of just bouncing around to the Chiefs and the Bucks and trying to make things work. He went to the Ravens even, I know, for a stint, and it just, he like these guys, they flame out. Like they have the personalities of wide receivers, but they don't have the shelf life of them. Like it's just that's the unfortunate truth. Like, and you're really just asking for more than it's worth at that point. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, I would just say like be cautious when you're dealing for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's still relatively young on the younger side for a back, but you just have to watch out for that because you can't invest top dollar into a guy like that anymore, just knowing how quickly the treads kind of come off those tires. So you have to be careful of that. And I think that some teams will. I am wondering what the trade compensation will look like. But Ryan, that is unfortunately all the time we have. We are now down to the wire. It's been a great episode talking with the man, but we're going to wrap up everything we discussed on this show and send you guys on your way. But first, Ryan, I know you have a fan page. We've mentioned it about the, your Celtics blog, everything that you do with them. I'll let you shout that out now and, you have the people go follow it.
Yeah, so if you guys want to check it out, it's at celticseverthing on Instagram. I'm hovering around 25, 26K. I've been trying to climb to that. That's the next mark. But I'm posting news. We got a lot more stuff coming this season. I kind of have a little team going in terms of productions for edits and such. So the content is looking good for this year, and the pages started to look better over last year. So I'd appreciate if you guys checked it out.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Go give him a follow. And then if you're not following Down to the Wire yet, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and more. We also stream the video portion of this show on YouTube, and then you can follow us on Instagram at down.to the wire. So give us a follow on there if this is your first time listening to this episode. So on this episode, we discussed the Red Sox, really lack of moves at the trade deadline. They did acquire infielder Luis Urias from the Brewers, but nothing else as a result. We discussed the demise of the New York Mets after spending millions and millions of dollars, did not end up in playoff contention or contending for a playoff spot. And then in NBA news, we discussed Jaylen Brown's 5-year, $304 million Supermax extension with the Celtics. Still an unreal number to me. I can't believe that Jason Tatum is actually going to get more money than him from this team. And Jaylen Brown is a guy, like, as we said, Ryan, who can't dribble to his left and can't use his left hand is getting that much money. It's unbelievable. So credit to that. I mean, congrats on getting the bag, man. I got to give you credit. And then finally, we wrap things up today by discussing Jonathan Taylor's trade request from the Indianapolis Colts. Colts owner Jim Irsay said that the team wasn't going to trade him, but that has apparently changed. I know that the team is fielding calls on the All-Pro running back. So we appreciate you guys, coming out talking to us today. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Ryan Steiner.
And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Really appreciate it. Take care. Peace out.